Welcome to HFY Fiction Journey. You've heard of dad strength, right? Well, today we're taking that to a whole new level. In this story, an ordinary Earth dad, who just happens to be from the galaxy's most dangerous planet, lifts a car. Yes, you heard that right. Lifts a car to save his kid. And let's just say, the aliens watching this, yeah, they're a little shook. If you're ready for some serious dad power, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to HFY Fiction Journey for more crazy sci-fi action. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. That's impossible. He can't be that strong, Sergeant Tell muttered, immediately regretting his words. The group of elite guards stood frozen, watching in disbelief as a human dad, a creature they had been hired to protect, lifted an entire hover car off his pinned child. The vehicle wasn't some flimsy transport either. It was a standard Sark-class cruiser, designed to withstand military-grade impacts. The reinforced armor and anti-grav dampeners easily weighed several tons. Yet, there he was, this Deathworlder, grunting under the pressure, but somehow holding up the machine long enough for his kid to crawl out from underneath. How is he still standing? Corporal Quicks whispered, clicking his mandibles nervously as he adjusted his weapon's harness. His compound eyes shifted from the human to Tell, searching for an answer that didn't come. Calling humans strange would have been an understatement. The Galactic Coalition had long classified Earth as a death world, a planet where life constantly faced danger. Harsh weather, predatory wildlife, extreme gravity. Everything about that blue planet was a challenge, yet humans thrived. And now, their dads were casually performing feats of strength that would shame most powerlifting species across the galaxy. The guards stood in shock, their training and combat experience unable to prepare them for witnessing such human resilience. On paper, they knew these Deathworlders had physical abilities beyond most species, but seeing it firsthand was another thing entirely. A shrill cry from the child brought them back to the moment. The boy, no older than 6, scrambled to his feet, wide-eyed, looking at his father. "Dad, are you okay?" "Yeah," the man huffed, muscles trembling with exertion. His face, contorted with effort, gradually softened as he set the car down with a heavy thud. He stumbled back, taking deep breaths, clearly drained but still standing. Tell scanned the scene urgently. The car had crashed due to a malfunction in its anti-grav systems, a rare occurrence, but not unheard of. His mandibles twitched. If they had been even a second slower, the child could have been crushed. But it wasn't their high-tech armor or training that saved the boy. It was this human's sheer willpower. "You should have let us handle it," Tell muttered, though it sounded more like an excuse than a command. The dad, still panting, wiped sweat from his brow. "No time to wait for help. My boy was in danger." Quicks shifted uneasily. "But that car weighed more than an entire squad transport. How did you—" The dad shrugged, his body clearly showing the strain. "Adrenaline, I guess. You'd be surprised what you can do when your kid's on the line." Tell's antenna twitched. This human's casual attitude towards something so extraordinary was unsettling. The entire Coalition military force had specialized training for situations where survival instincts kicked in, but nothing in the manuals mentioned lifting vehicles. "Still," Tell continued, "your body should have given out. Even for a human, that was—" "Stupid," the dad finished with a small grin. "Yeah, my wife tells me that all the time." Quicks looked confused. "Your wife?" The man raised an eyebrow at the puzzled expressions on their alien faces. "You know, partner, we've been together for years." Not exactly the time for that story, though. Tell didn't respond. His mind was still processing what had just happened. He signaled his guards to start clearing the area. The incident had drawn too much attention already. Other human civilians were gathering, some gasping in awe while others recorded the moment, likely broadcasting it to every corner of the galaxy. "Keep the crowd back," Tell ordered, trying to regain control of the situation. His team moved quickly, though their disbelief was still apparent. The dad limped over to his son, ruffling the boy's hair to calm him down. Tell approached again, more cautiously this time. Are you going to be all right? The human looked down at his bruised hands, scraped from gripping the car's undercarriage. His arms still shook, the adrenaline rush wearing off. I'll be fine, he said, flexing his fingers. Just need some rest. Won't be lifting any more cars today. Tell clicked his mandibles nervously. He could barely fathom lifting one, let alone considering it a casual action. The crowd started to thin as the excitement faded, leaving Tell, his guards, the human dad, and his son. Were you scared? Tell finally asked, unable to stop himself. The human blinked, as if the question didn't make sense. Of course, I was. But fear doesn't matter when someone you love is in danger. He smiled faintly at his son. It's just how we're wired, I guess. Tell didn't have a response to that. It wasn't a type of wiring he was familiar with. As the evening chill settled in, the human dad sat on a nearby bench with his son leaning against him, still shaken but unharmed. The guards remained close, watching the scene and trying to process what had just unfolded. Tell couldn't shake the image of a man lifting several tons of machinery with his bare hands. Are all humans capable of this? Quicks asked quietly, antenna twitching in curiosity as he stared at the dad. Tell shook his head. I've read reports, but this is beyond anything I've seen. Maybe it's rare. Quicks clicked his mandibles in disbelief. That can't be normal. No species can maintain that level of strength without breaking down. That's what makes them dangerous, Tell muttered. Their biology defies logic. Before they could continue, the human dad stood, stretching his stiff muscles. All right, kiddo, let's get home, he said, patting his son on the back. The boy nodded, still wide-eyed from shock, glancing between his father and the guards, as if trying to piece it all together. Tell stepped forward cautiously. We'll escort you both back, just in case, Telek said, though he didn't want to admit that he had no idea what other surprises might come up. He had seen Deathworlders do wild things before, but lifting a vehicle off a person was something he'd be thinking about for the rest of his career. The human shrugged, not seeming to mind the extra security. Sure, if it makes you feel better. He glanced down at his son, who was gripping his leg tightly. You okay to walk, champ? The boy nodded, though he stayed silent, his small face still pale. As they moved through the streets, the tension between the guards was palpable. Every now and then, Quicks would glance sideways at the dad, as if expecting him to perform another act of superhuman strength. Telex couldn't blame him. There was something unpredictable about these humans. Strong, sure, but it was the way they handled danger that set them apart from other species. Humans, Quicks whispered to himself. They just don't act like the rest of us. Telex glanced at him. You mean how they ignore basic survival instincts? Quicks nodded. Exactly. No species rushes toward danger like that. Telex grunted. He had seen human soldiers in action before, and their willingness to put themselves in harm's way was legendary. But this was different. A father with no combat training throwing himself into danger for his child. It was reckless, illogical. And yet here he was, alive and mostly unharmed. They reached the human's home soon after. It was a modest Earth-style dwelling tucked between towering city structures, humming with the faint energy of anti-grav engines. The guard stopped at the entrance, and Telex turned to the dad. We'll post a team nearby, just in case anything else happens, he offered, his mandibles clicking with a mix of concern and duty. The dad smiled, shaking his head. That's nice of you, but we'll be fine. Besides, he added with a wink, I doubt anything heavier than a hover car is going to fall on us tonight. Telex's antenna twitched. Humans and their humor. It was unnerving, especially after a day like this. Still, Telex insisted, we have to be sure. I'd like to run some scans. Maybe check the anti-grav systems that malfunctioned earlier. The human's expression turned serious for a moment. Yeah, about that. Do you think the malfunction was just bad luck? Or is something else going on? Telex hesitated. It was the same question that had been nagging at him since the incident. Malfunctions happen, but not often with Coalition technology, especially not in areas as well maintained. We'll investigate it, he said, but it's possible someone tampered with the system. The dad frowned, his protective instincts flaring again. You think someone's targeting us? It's too early to say for sure, but it's possible, Telix admitted, scanning the surroundings. Stay alert. If anything seems off, contact us immediately. The human nodded, his gaze hardening at the thought. All right, but if something does happen, he flexed his hand, as if remembering the weight of the car. I can handle it. Quicks let out a low click of disbelief. Telix didn't blame him. The human spoke with such casual confidence, as if lifting cars was just part of his day. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Telix said diplomatically, though deep down he wasn't entirely convinced the human wouldn't try it again. As they left the human's home, Telix activated his communicator. We need a full diagnostic on the anti-grav systems in this district, he ordered. Check for any signs of tampering, and I want surveillance logs from the last 48 hours. Something about this doesn't sit right. Quicks nodded, his own communicator already buzzing with activity as he relayed the orders to the other guards. Do you really think someone's targeting them? He asked, more serious now. I don't know, Telix replied honestly, but we can't rule it out. Humans might be tough, but they're not invincible. Whoever or whatever set that trap, they knew exactly what they were doing. As they walked away from the house, the darkness of the city settled in, and Telix's mind churned with thoughts. Something about the incident didn't add up. The malfunction had been too perfect, too well-timed. He just hoped they weren't too late to uncover the truth. The following morning, Telix stood at the district control center, staring at a massive screen displaying the data from their investigation. Engineers and guards buzzed around him, analyzing the anti-grav malfunction. So far, nothing concrete had turned up, but Telix had a nagging feeling something was still wrong. Anything yet? He asked one of the technicians combing through the logs. Sir, the technician replied, eyes glued to the data. No clear signs of tampering yet, but we're checking for more subtle methods. This could have been a professional job if it was sabotage. Telix grunted. A professional job? The Coalition had seen its share of sabotage attempts from rival factions or rogue mercenaries, but none targeting civilians, especially not humans. Still, something about the situation felt too calculated, and he wasn't willing to dismiss the possibility just yet. His communicator buzzed, snapping him from his thoughts. Quix's voice crackled through. Sergeant, you need to see this. Telix frowned. What is it? Another malfunction? 2 streets over. Different system, but a similar failure. Telix's heart sank. He didn't believe in coincidences, especially not with Deathworlders involved. I'm on my way. When Telix arrived at the scene, a crowd had already gathered. Quix was there, keeping civilians back as a team of guards examined the wreckage. This time, a power conduit had exploded, damaging several buildings and sending debris into the streets. The human dad was there, too, his son standing by his side, wide-eyed as he looked at the wreckage. Telix approached cautiously, noticing the man's expression, calm but wary. The same look he'd had when lifting the hover car. Another accident, the dad asked, his voice laced with skepticism. Telix nodded. Seems that way. But we're not ruling out foul play. The dad rubbed his chin thoughtfully, his eyes scanning the scene. If someone's targeting us, they're getting bold. Telix agreed but said nothing. He looked around, trying to get a sense of the area. Whoever was behind this was likely nearby, watching. His mandibles clicked nervously. The last thing they needed was another disaster. Any idea who it could be? The dad asked, breaking the silence. We're still investigating. Telix replied carefully. But if someone is targeting humans, we'll find them. I can assure you of that. The human nodded, though Telix could tell he wasn't satisfied with the answer. In the meantime, the dad said, I think we should be prepared for anything, just in case. Telix opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a loud hum filled the air, a sound he knew all too well. It was an energy weapon charging up. His eyes darted to the source, and there on a nearby rooftop, a cloaked figure held a rifle aimed directly at the dad and his son. "Down!" Telix shouted, drawing his weapon in one swift motion. But before anyone could react, the human dad moved faster than Telix had ever seen. In a blur, he grabbed his son and dove behind a nearby barricade, shielding the boy with his body. The energy bolt hit the ground where they had just stood, sending a shower of sparks into the air. Telix fired at the rooftop, but the shooter had already vanished, blending into the chaos of the city. Quicks and the other guards spread out, searching for the attacker, but it was clear they were dealing with a professional, someone who knew how to strike and disappear without leaving a trace. The dad stood up, still clutching his son, his face a mask of determination. "They're targeting my kid," he said coldly. "I'm not waiting around for another close call." Shaken by the near miss, Telix agreed. "We'll get you both to a safe house," he said, already signaling his team to arrange transport. "But I need you to trust us. We'll handle the situation." The dad stared at him for a moment, jaw clenched. "I trust you," he said finally. "But if they come for my son again, I won't hesitate to act." Telix had no doubt that he would. After what he'd seen the day before, he knew better than to underestimate human resolve. By the time they reached the safe house, the situation had become more dire. Telix's suspicions were confirmed. Someone was deliberately targeting the human and his son. Coalition intelligence had uncovered traces of a rogue mercenary group operating in the sector, likely hired to take out specific human civilians. Their motives were still unclear, but it was obvious they saw humans as a threat. And after seeing what the dad was capable of, Telix couldn't entirely blame them. Inside the safe house, Telix paced nervously, his mind racing with possibilities. The mercenaries were still out there, and they wouldn't stop until the job was done. He had to stay a step ahead, but the unpredictability of the situation gnawed at him. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the lights in the safe house dimmed. "What now?" Telix muttered, rushing to a terminal. The security feed flickered to life, showing a squad of heavily armed figures advancing toward the building. "They found us," Quick said, his voice tight with tension. Telix cursed under his breath. "We need to get the dad and his son out of here now." But before they could move, the door to the safe house burst open, and the human dad stormed out, his son clinging to his side. His face was set in a calm expression, but there was a fire in his eyes that Telix couldn't quite read. "Stay inside," Telix ordered. "We'll handle them." But the human shook his head. "No, you won't. Not alone." Telix watched stunned as the dad stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. The approaching mercenaries didn't seem to faze him at all. In fact, he looked ready to take them on himself. "You're not going out there," Telix protested. "It's too dangerous." The dad smiled. "You saw what I did yesterday. If they want to mess with my kid, they're in for a surprise." And with that, he charged toward the mercenaries. The fight that followed was nothing short of chaos. Telix and his team provided cover fire, but it was the human dad who became the center of attention, dodging blaster shots with almost unnatural reflexes. He closed the distance between himself and the mercenaries with terrifying speed. Within moments, he was disarming them, throwing punches that sent the attackers sprawling to the ground. His movements were fluid and precise, like a trained soldier, though Telix knew the man wasn't military. By the time the dust settled, the mercenaries were either unconscious or retreating, dragging their wounded comrades with them. Telix stood there, dumbfounded, as the human dad dusted off his hands and returned to his son's side. "You all right, champ?" the dad asked, ruffling the boy's hair. The child nodded, wide-eyed but unharmed. "Dad, that was awesome," still catching his breath. Telix could only shake his head in disbelief. "How? How did you?" The dad grinned. "I told you. You'd be surprised what we can do when our kids are in danger." Telix stared at him, realizing in that moment just how formidable humans could be. It wasn't just their physical strength. It was their willpower, their ability to act without hesitation when it came to protecting those they loved. "We're done here," the dad said calmly, turning to leave. And next time someone messes with us, they better be ready. As they walked off, Telex couldn't help but feel a newfound respect and maybe a little fear for the Deathworlders. They were more than just tough. They were unstoppable when it came to family.